All right, so this is perpendicular, writing equations of perpendicular lines. Okay, we have already gone over perpendicular lines. Their slope is opposite reciprocals. So opposites meaning one positive, one negative. Reciprocal means I flipped the fraction. Okay, perpendicular lines meet at a right angle. So they're going to cross, but they're also going to cross at a right angle. Okay, another way to think about opposite reciprocals is if they multiply to -1, they are opposite reciprocals. So that's another way you can check to see if their lines are perpendicular. So example 1, y equals 3x plus 7, the slope is 3. Y equals -3x plus 2, the slope is -3. And we want to know if they are perpendicular. So one way you could check is 3 times -3 is -9, which is not -1, so they're not opposite reciprocals. So no, they're not perpendicular. Right, and then our lines y equals 2x plus 2, so the slope is 2. And y equals -1/2 x, so our slope is -1/2. Are they perpendicular? So you can look at them and see one's positive, one's negative. They're flipped, they're opposite reciprocals. You can also multiply them and see that they multiply by to -1. So yes, they are perpendicular. Example 3, we have lines y equals x plus 3 and x plus y equals 5. We want to tell if they're perpendicular. So y equals x plus 3, remember there's a 1 hiding in front of the x, so my slope is 1 here. X plus y equals 5, I got to do a little work to find the slope. So remember, I got to convert it to slope-intercept form. So I want to move my x to the opposite side by subtracting. And then y is already by itself, so my slope, remember there's a -1 hiding there. So I have a slope of 1 and -1. And if you multiply them, you get -1. So they are perpendicular. Or you can just think of their opposite reciprocals. So yes, they are perpendicular. All right, so in our discovery activity, we did some examples of writing perpendicular lines through a y-intercept. Okay, on your paper playlist, you'll have to go back to that and review that. Okay, so we're going to skip to examples where they're not going through an intercept, but they're going through a given point. Okay, so we want to write an equation that is perpendicular to y equals 3x plus 4 and goes through the point to -1. So my slope of the equation is married to x, so that's our 3. Find the perpendicular slope. So I'm going to flip it to make it 1/3. This was positive, so my perpendicular slope has to be negative. Okay, now like we did parallel lines, you can do it with formulas or you could do it with graphs. I'm going to show you both ways for perpendicular lines and you decide which way you like to do it better. Okay, so using a formula, we know the slope and they give us the point that the line goes through. So we can plug it into the point slope form. I know a point and I know a slope. I can use the point slope form. So here's my x1 and y1. This is my m. I'm going to plug it into my formula. And then once I have it in point slope form, I can convert it to slope intercept form. So minus and negative becomes a y plus 1. Then I'm going to distribute negative 1/3 times x. And negative 1/3 times negative 2. Two negatives make a positive. And then I'm going to add or subtract that number with the y. So since it's a plus, I'm going to subtract. So bring down my y, bring down the negative 1/3 x, and then 2/3 minus 1. And make it a fraction. So I'm going to push math, enter, enter. Gives me negative 1/3. Okay, there's my line that is perpendicular and goes through the point 2, negative 1. Okay, so now if you would like to do this on the graph, we found the slope, the perpendicular slope is negative 1/3. And we already know the point, they give us the point. So let's start at that point 2, negative 1. Remember, x first to plot the point, and then the y down. So there's 2, negative 1. And I know the slope of the perpendicular line is negative 1/3. So let's do the slope. Negative 1 is down 1, to the right 3. Now I'm off the graph, so I need to go the opposite direction anyway to find my y-intercept. So I'm going to go up 1, to the left 3. And it's on the other side of the y-axis. I'll connect my line. Now, y equals, I know the slope was negative 1/3. And then this is a great reason to use the formulas because we've got a intercept that doesn't go through a whole number. So we can't really tell if that is negative 1/3 or not. So using the formulas, we can see that's negative 1/3. But on the graph, it didn't really help us because we don't know exactly where that y-intercept is. But you'll see on the next example where it can help and it can help you. Okay, example 5, we're going to write an equation that's perpendicular to negative 3/4 x plus 2 and goes through the point 3, 1. So we have our point, we have our line. Find the slope of the line. So our slope is negative 3/4. To find the perpendicular slope, I want to flip that. So I have 4/3. Now this was negative, so my perpendicular slope stays positive. And I know the point they gave me, and I found the slope, so I can plug into point slope form. So here's my x1 and y1. There's my m, and I'm going to plug it into my formula. Y minus y1 is 1 equals m is 4/3. X minus x1 is 3. Then convert to slope intercept form. So I want to distribute, get rid of those parentheses, right? Bring down the y minus 1. Then I have 4/3 x, 4/3 times 3. 4 divided by 3 times 3 is 4. there's a minus there, so I'm going to put minus 4. Then I add or subtract the number with y. Since it was a minus 1, I'm going to add 1 on both sides. So bring down my y, bring down the equals, 4/3 x, negative 4 plus 1 is negative 3. So there is my equation. If you would like to use the graph paper, remember we know our slope and we know our point. So start with your point. Graph 3, 1, x first. So we go over 3 and up 1 to plot our point. And our slope is 4/3. So from my point, I'm going to rise 4 and run 3, but I'm going off the graph. So I'm going to change my direction. I'm going to go down 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and to the left 3. And there's my y-intercept there. Connect my line, my dots. And then find the equation. So I know the slope, y equals mx plus b, was up 4, rise 4, run 3. And my y-intercept is negative 3. So 2 different ways, we got the same answer. Okay, so if you do the graph and you find a fraction, it's not a whole number on the y-intercept, you got to be able to use this point slope form to find your answers. Okay, you will be given extra graph paper if you need it during your quizzes and your test. So if you are able to do this way, you will have that graph paper for you. All right, so today I hope you have a very productive day and work on your playlist so it's ready to be turned in on Monday. If you have any questions, please stop and ask. And also stop and replay parts of this video where it's needed. That's the good thing about a video. You can stop and replay.